Good afternoon, reefers. I just wanted to do a quick update on my Fluval M90 budget build. I said in the last video I'd do a just an update on the go through the costs of what this costs to set up. I've also done a couple of bits to the tank that I'll explain them as we go through. Have got a filter on this lens now for the phone I'm filming on. So it's got a D&D color coral XL lens, so hopefully now the footage should look a bit more natural, because if I take the lens off, it's not quite that blue in reality. It's more white than that, but obviously without the lens on, it's really hard to film, as you can imagine. So we'll go through the rundown of the costs for this tank. As I said, it was a budget build, so why did I go for a 3-foot Fluval M90 over a nano tank? Well, simply that was just down to cost. So when I looked at like a Fluval Evo 52 litre nano tank, I looked at a small water box as well, the Peninsula and the Cubes. But if you look at the price of what they are for the size, this Fluval M90 came up for sale and I paid £170 for the tank and stand. I did have to buy a new nozzle as well, because it didn't come with the nozzle for the outlet, so I had to replace that. That was £15. So going over the other bits then for this budget build, as I said, a lot of it is pretty much would have cost almost the same to do a smaller nano tank than what it did to do this 3-foot tank. So I'll go through what the bits I brought, where I managed to save some money, and obviously you guys can save some money as well. If you're looking at certain bits and pieces, you can save money. So the second thing is really containers. So containers for filling up your RO water, whether you're collecting from a shop or you're doing it yourself at home with an RO unit. So I brought two 25 litre containers. They were £20. Just the other sort of smaller bits and pieces I'll go through there as well, but getting into the main equipment really as well, the return pump. So I went second hand to save a bit of money. I went for a Tmc return pump. It's the 2000 model, and obviously it's got the controller on the top of the left side of the tank there on the image. So that was £40, and I think new they're around £68–70, something like that. So that was a little saving there. The heater was brand new. That was a Fluval M150 watt heater. That was £20, brand new. Sand, so when I first set this tank up, I brought one bag of Carib Sea AgriLive sand. That was £20 worth of sand. That was £30 for the sand at the time, although it wasn't enough really for this size tank, and I'll go over something that I've done this week for the tank. My rock was Carib Sea Life Rock, so it obviously had like the purple hue. The rock was £90 for the amount that you can see in there. Obviously if this was a smaller nano tank, I probably would have got away with not doing the £90 box. I could have done the smaller set, which I think would have been about 60 quid, £50 to £60 for like the nano rock. But the rock was 90, so I think for the size of it and what's in there, I don't think that was too bad. The salt that I originally brought to cycle the tank was some Tmc salt, and that was £30 for a 7 kilogram bucket. I'm now on Red Sea salt. I brought a refractometer, that was £14. Test kit I brought was a Red Sea foundation test kit, that was £50, which covers pretty much everything you need to be testing when you're cycling and beyond. I also brought the Red Sea Reef Mature kit, and that was full cycling, so that was £26. Biomedia, I used some of the, I can't remember what the name is, I'll have to look it up, but I used some of these newer style Sophia balls for the biomedia. They were £15. The ATO that I've got is a D&D ATO, which I did show in the last video, and I'll show that again in a minute. That was second hand. I paid 40 for that. I think they're normally about 70, brand new. The original light that I brought was a Max Spec MJ165, something like that. That was £125. That was second hand, and I think new they're about 200. So it was just one singular light in the center of this tank was what was on it when I was cycling. Temp controller was £42. I brought a lid for the tank, a D&D lid, that was £40. The skimmer was a Tmc 9004, and that was also second hand. I paid 68 for that. I think they're supposed to be about 130, brand new. So all in all, for this sort of, to set up this 3-foot tank initially, the cost for all those bits is £835 for everything I've just listed. If I had have brought the other bits brand spanking new, it would have been just over £1,000 to set this up. So 835 versus £1,002 roughly, if everything had been new. So there was a little saving there, not a massive amount, but when you're sort of talking that sort of money and you're starting out, every sort of little bit helps, I found anyway. And I didn't do this all in one go either, so I sourced bits. I think I brought the tank and stands. So once I knew what I was going to be running, I then started sourcing bits over the next month and a half. I think I did it over 2 months really, just sourcing all the bits to actually get it set up and running. So the thing I would say with that is the easier way to do it is not, unless you've got the money to do it, of course, which I did have. It would have been on credit cards, but I could have just brought it all in one go. But I wanted to be sensible and just do it payday to payday and actually just buy the stuff. And once the stuff was brought, that was it. I didn't have to pay anything off a credit card. I didn't have to do anything like that. So I did it slowly. As I said, I just sourced everything, did a lot more research before I sort of delved into it, and I spent, you know, about a month and a half sourcing all the bits. On top of that though, there's a couple other bits that I added on top of the 835. So obviously your first fish after your cycle going in, so 2 clowns for me was £25. So I'll sort of include that because obviously setting up a marine tank, generally you're going to put some sort of stock in there after you've cycled it, and I've sort of classed that as the initial setup really, because obviously you're not really going to have nothing in it. And a basic cleanup crew. So again, for a basic cleanup crew, I just put down £20. That's roughly what I spent for the first bits of cleanup crew that went in it. I did also buy some more Nopox, Red Sea Nopox, and some more Coralline Grow. So when I was cycling this tank with the Red Sea Reef Mature program, obviously Nopox is being dosed pretty much from day one, just to control the levels and keep the nitrate level down while cycling. And the same for the Coralline Grow. So what you can do is you can carry on the Nopox at the minute. So since after the cycle, I've not actually been dosing Nopox anymore because my nitrate levels have been fairly low without it. Sort of testing nitrate weekly, and it's sitting around 2 to 5. So there's no real need to dose Nopox on this system at the minute. I'm still dosing Coralline Grow. So I think I left the Coralline Grow for a few weeks and I was testing the alkalinity, and I was still getting 8 DKH, which I was happy with that. And then it did drop, so it sort of went to 7, and I thought, right, that's the sort of point I need to start dosing the Coralline Grow again. So because I had it already, a big bottle, I've just decided to carry on with that. At some point I will probably be going over to dosing Red Sea's 3-stage, or you know, their reef program, which is dosing each thing separately, and the Coralline Grow is replaced with their foundation. I think it's the foundation A for alkalinity, the one to dose for that. So I'll probably end up swapping over to that at some point. So with those like extra bits with the fish, the cleanup crew, and the Nopox and Coralline Grow, that was another £85 there. So you're looking, for me it was around £920 to pretty much get that set up to a point of saying it's officially set up and running, and you know, having all the bits. That's not really including food, so I suppose you could throw on another £20 worth of, you know, pellets, flake, bits and pieces that you end up buying. So do I think £920 to set up a 3-foot tank is good value for money? I mean, when I was doing the initial research looking at smaller nano tanks, I think bar the sort of buying a slightly bigger light, Although if you look up the light that I had, the max spec MJ165, it's quite a, you could still run that light on a nano tank, and it was also pretty decent on this, even though this is 3 foot. So as I said, a lot of the equipment is pretty much the same. It just depends on what sort of size tank, and I always generally prefer to have slightly bigger tanks, you know, over something smaller. But I said initially the reason why I was looking for a nano marine tank was just because of the cost. I was trying to just dip my toe into it, you know, and try and have some sort of you know, try and have some success. But obviously this tank came up, and I said in the previous video I had one of these tanks before. It was actually an M90 that I took the rear chamber out of it, and I actually ran it as a freshwater tank. But as I said, that was quite a long time ago. So yeah, so I said you know, is it cheap to get into marine? Obviously I'll probably say not, but then, you know, freshwater as well can also be quite expensive. By the time you buy a tank, a good canister filter will probably cost you £200 to £250 now for, you know, a canister filter. There is a few more bits that you do need to get for running a marine tank, so obviously you do have to kind of take that into account really. But as I said, you know, ongoing at the minute for this, running this system, I'm using Red Sea Pro Salt. The black bucket is what I'm running on this now, and yeah, as I said, it's running pretty good. Obviously now with this lens on, I'll go a bit closer in a bit, but you can see now the tank is sort of going through the ugly stage. I did say this last week. So, you know, the rocks have got bits of algae on and bits and pieces. It has improved actually. It's not as bad as what it was probably about 2-3 weeks ago. So I'm not overly concerned. To be fair, it does look fairly natural, or not that great. I would prefer just to see the sort of purple rock and, you know, and just focus on more the fish and the corals. But as I said, most tanks, when they're sort of fairly new, do go through this sort of early ugly stage, and until it's sort of dialed in properly, it's not really going to resolve. So phosphate at the minute, I'm still not really getting a reading for phosphate, and I think I did mention this last time. So I am going to be going for a Hanna checker for the low range phosphate, just so I can get an actual proper reading, because trying to do the Salifert, I think it's Salifert test for it's just almost impossible. You test it, you can barely see that the water doesn't look any different in the test file for looking at it. The colour shades between the results are so close, it's almost impossible to actually get your phosphate reading unless it's particularly high. So that's the sort of only annoyance really. As I said, nitrates at the minute, weekly testing. I always test on a Saturday or Friday night before I do a water change. So generally my water change day is Sunday. Sometimes I do it on a Saturday. So whichever day I'm gonna do it, I do all my testing the day before. So as I said, alkalinity at the minute is still sitting around 8 to 9 DKH, and nitrate is been between 2 and 5 consistently now for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. It's not really changed. So a couple of updates for the tank then. So what I did do, as I mentioned in the original setup, costs. So the one bag of sand was £30 when I brought it, and it wasn't really enough. If you look at the last video, the sand just it wasn't as deep as what I would have liked, and it just didn't seem to be enough for this size tank. So this week I had a new bag of sand come, just the Carib Sea Agra, I think it's the Agra Live sand. It's the thicker, slightly thicker grain of sand, because I'm not a massive fan of the real fine stuff, but obviously everyone's got their personal preference of that. So it's had a new bag of sand in. That was another £20 bag of sand gone into this now, and it does look a lot better having a slightly thicker sand bed. Fish wise, everything is really good. So the clowns they seem to have grown quite a lot since I first got them. They were particularly quite small, as I mentioned in the previous video. The Coral Beauty is really happy. So since I've put the little frag rack that side of the tank. He seems to spend a lot of his time now just sort of going up and over and underneath that that frag rack, which is pretty cool to see. He still hangs around with the fox face. I think you've probably seen through me talking. I think he's been out a few times. He's still fairly shy. I don't really know what much else I can do to sort of make him less shy, but if you walk up to the tank in particular, he still sort of seeks cover and darts out the way. But other than that, he's as I said, if you're sat down and not got loads of movement going on with the tank, he's always out. Like he does come out. So as I said, but he's nowhere near as active as the coral beauty. Is just always out. And the yellow-tailed damsels, as you can see, they're pretty much always out. They still shelter. If you get too close to the tank, they tend to dart off and go away. So yeah, so the extra sand I put in was one thing I did. The other thing I had this week is I had a shipment of corals from Prestige Reef. So for anyone who's not familiar, you've got Prestige Reef, who's got a YouTube channel, and he's also does weekly live streams with a channel called Reef Doc, which is Alex. I think his surname's Brook. I think it's Alex Brook, aka Reef Dork. So I do watch them on a weekly basis, and obviously I've seen a lot of Ryan's videos. So he's got a coral farm set up at his home, and I think he lives down south to me. So I'm in the Midlands area. But so I thought, I've seen enough people post on different pages and stuff that I'm on about his. He does these sort of mystery boxes for corals. So I think he does mystery boxes for soft, LPS, SPS, and he also does a mixed box. So I decided just to go for a mixed box, just not really. And Ryan did reach out, so he did message and say, are you going to be in on this certain day for delivery? And I messaged him back and said yes. And at that point, I did mention that I had. I mentioned how old the tank was. I said that I had some GSP and a frag plug of Zoas, which were orange. So I did mention that to him, and I was hoping that he'd send me some more Zoas, because I do want to do a bit of a Zoa garden on the one side of this escape. So, and he didn't disappoint. So I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, the box price was it was $39.99 for the mystery box. I think those mystery boxes are the cheapest that he does, and shipping on top of that, I think it was £14. So I think it was £54 delivered to your door for sort of 6 frags, and I couldn't complain. So they came 1 PM next day, Royal Mail. Acclimated them, put them straight in. I had the little coral frag rack come at the same time the sand did as well, and the lens, which is on this camera. But as I said, as far as the corals were concerned, couldn't be happier with what he sent, really. Ryan, as I said, he always does his best to try and send a nice mixture of stuff. So I'll go a bit closer now and I'll show you what he actually sent. So if I just come down here, so the only thing I had is so the frag plug, the 3 that are here this side, the one on the frag plug on the left, unfortunately when I was moving stuff about, some of the heads on that plug, so I think there was 4 heads on that plug, and 3 of them came off together, and by the time I noticed that they'd gone off, it was just sort of too late, really, and I didn't really want to take them back out and try and stick them back on the rocks. Obviously the other 2 frags there were pretty much as they came, and the same is those there. He also sent me this, which is pretty interesting. I'm still not 100% sure what this is. I think it's sort of very similar to GSP, but they do sort of you can get different variants of GSP type of corals, and I think this is sort of like one of the longer versions, but it's got, like the real green center. It came on a tiny piece of it's almost like embedded onto a tiny piece of rock already, which was quite nice, to be fair. It didn't look much when it came in the pot, and I thought, what is it? I couldn't really tell what it was. It was only when I started getting it acclimated, I saw a couple of these come out, and it sort of gave me an indication of what it was. So I just initially placed it on this rock in here, and after it sort of settled in for the first day or so, I then decided to mount it on there properly. The GSP I had is sulking, which was here, and I've moved it onto this back rock for the time being. But as you can see at the minute, because it's been messed with, it's not particularly happy, and it's not out at the moment. So the other Zoas are out, but I already had them. So the other frag that I had was this one that he'd sent me. So this, I think, is a Montipora, something like that, an encrusting coral. So it does come up quite yellow there, but if I take the lens off, it's more of a red. So it's a deeper red. That, so it's quite nice. That it's quite a nice piece. That's the Zoas that I already had. This is the one with the green polyps. And then if I come around to this side, as I said, the Zoas are quite hard to, they're really hard to see, to be fair, but you can see them a bit better with the lens back on. As I said, and tank wise, everything's running really good. So obviously, like the skimmer, as I went over before, my main filtration is just the filter floss in the second section. There's a pump, Eheim pump, second chamber, which goes down to a TMC UV sterilizer, and obviously you've got the heater ATO, and obviously the return pump is down in there, which is the TMC. There's bits of algae and bits and pieces growing on the heater there in the back, but as I said, I'm not overly worried about that. But so that piece there is just like, it's quite a nice size, and it's really interesting. So the coral beauty is about. The damsels are kicking around, but as you can see, bits of algae on the rocks, as you'd probably expect for a tank that's sort of maturing. I was hoping the foxface would probably do a better job at picking some of this off. I do see him picking, but he doesn't actually go for that much of it really, than what I was sort of hoping. But the cleanup crew in here, so the snails I've got, they seem to don't mind mowing over it, and whenever they do get over it, you can definitely tell where they've been, because they just they leave a nice trail of where they've gone, and you can sort of see where they've literally been over it, and they leave sort of almost like road marks in it really. But that's it. I don't think there's much else to update you with at the minute. I've got a new wave maker on the cards next. I need to up the size of the one on the left there, because that's only a 4000. It's a Jecod SOW4, so it's only the 4000 one. I need to get at least an 8000 that side, and probably move the 4000 up to the right hand side of the tank, sort of blowing towards the camera, just to get a bit more flow. But as I said, that'll be next, and I'll give you an update on how the algae goes as we mature a little bit more. I'll let you know. But as you can see, the foxface is just he's so quick at tucking himself back underneath his little favourite spot. But coral beauty and the Nemos are, they're so chilled. But the Nemos, the clownfish of I'm saying Nemos because that's what my daughters call them all the time. But yeah, the clownfish have probably doubled in size since I've had them. So they're doing really nice, really chilled. They like sticking up on this top corner, but as you probably saw at the beginning, they do sort of change position. But yeah, the only thing I was going to say is just that for equipment costs,